Hello, Anacapa Island.
Hey there, Visitor Center. I hear you loud and clear. Hey, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Channel Islands Live. My name is Kelly Moore, and I am a park ranger and marine biologist here at Channel Islands National Park. Today, we partner with National Geographic in celebrating the National Park Bio Blitz in Washington, D.C. today and tomorrow. And thanks to our fabulous partners at Ventura County Office of Education and Explore.org, we have multiple audiences today. So I'd like to welcome everyone, starting with our audience right here with us on Anacapa Island. We have some fourth graders. Can I get a big hello from all of you here? Let's hear it. Nice job, guys. I heard you loud and clear. We've also got some high schoolers there with you, Ranger Lauren, at our visitor center. Can I hear a hello from you all? Nice. A little lower voices, some more older students there in that audience. We've also got some passive viewers through Facebook and also all the way back in Washington, D.C. So we have a lot of people watching today. Welcome, welcome, everybody, to this special broadcast. So today we are diving underwater around Anacapa Island, which is one of 5 islands in Channel Islands National Park. And it's within these waters we find a very complex, a very diverse, and unfortunately threatened ecosystem. It is literally a forest underwater. I'd like to ask our island audience here at Anacapa, if you guys know the name of this forest, shout it out, guys. Awesome. Yes, you're right. A kelp forest. The kelp forest is home to nearly 1,000 different marine organisms. And we're really lucky today. The kelp forest we're diving in is part of a marine reserve. That means this area is protected from fishing or take of any kind. And has been for over 30 years. So we're able to witness a very balanced, naturally functioning kelp forest ecosystem with all the players of the food web present. But just because it's protected does not mean that there are not some threats that still exist to this kelp forest. So today, we'll talk a little bit about kelp. You'll get a chance to see some of the different inhabitants that call the kelp forest home and rely on it in one way or another for survival. We'll talk a little bit about some threats to the system and ways that you and I can help take care of our ocean. So let's get started. Josh, let's look at this kelp right here. Giant kelp, the primary seaweed or algae of the kelp forest. It is very well adapted for living in the marine environment, and it's one of the fastest growing organisms on the planet. Kelp can grow up to 2 feet in one day under optimal conditions. Pretty amazing. But it's not a plant, although it often is referred to as one, and it kind of looks like a plant, but it's a seaweed, so it's a bit different. And I'll show you some of the different parts and how it's adapted to living in this marine environment. Instead of a very rigid tree trunk or branch like those we see on land, kelp has these wonderfully bendable stipes that allow it to move around with the motion down here underwater. It also has this very important part here. It's an air-filled bladder, and it acts a lot like a balloon, lifting the kelp up towards the surface. Okay, and my cameraman Josh is going to give you a great view of the surface here. And kelp needs something that is shining down from up above there to survive. So let's go with our Ventura audience this time at our visitor center. Go ahead and shout it out, guys. What do you think is shining down from up above that kelp needs to survive? Okay, that was probably too easy for you guys. You're high school. But you got it right. I'll have to think of some harder questions for you. You got it. Sunshine. And kelp, to produce energy for itself to grow, it needs that sunlight to undergo photosynthesis. You've all probably learned about that. And also, as part of that process, kelp is producing oxygen for everything living down here in the kelp forest, but also for all of us that live above the surface of the sea. Over half of what you and I breathe in terms of oxygen every day comes from seaweeds in our oceans. So kelp is a really important seaweed, not just to everything here that we'll see today, but also to you and I as well. So I'm going to drop down here. I have a couple of dive buddies with me, and they've gone out and found some critters for us to show you. And he brought some here, so we'll start with these. All right, our audience here on Anacapa. Thanks, Ranger Dave. If you know the name of these two critters, go ahead and shout it out. Urchin! Impressive, good. You got it, sea urchin. They rely on the kelp forest, particularly for food. They're very well adapted for eating kelp. They've got spines all over their body that pierce little bits of kelp as it drifts around in the water column. And then they use their 2 feet to move those kelp pieces down into their mouth. You can see in the middle of their bodies there on the underside. Hopefully you're getting a good shot of that. I've got 2 different types of sea urchins here. A red sea urchin and a purple sea urchin. They both eat kelp. And guess what? We eat sea urchin, believe it or not. Humans eat a certain type of sushi known as uni that comes from this red sea urchin. Purple sea urchins are much too small to eat, so we don't typically eat purples, but we do eat reds. So in lots of areas around the Channel Islands, these are collected by fishermen to sell. And in some areas, they are collected so much that they are almost gone from our kelp forest. And the purple urchins get very excited about that because that means there's lots more food for them. And their populations can explode and they can completely devour entire kelp forests, especially if we also overfish their predators, like lobster and the California sheephead, which I have been seeing swimming around me. And we call these areas of mass explosion of purple urchins, urchin barrens. And it's an example of a system that's not in balance. Some of the players of the food web are absent. But we don't see that here today. We are witnessing a very healthy, naturally functioning ecosystem because it's a marine reserve, like we mentioned before. So if I put these down, that sheephead behind us might try to scoop on in and get a midday snack, but I'm going to have to really tuck them in carefully. So as I do that, I would love to take, here he comes, this California sheephead is eyeing these 2 sea urchins. It's its favorite food. You can see its big teeth on the lower jaw, perfectly adapted for eating sea urchin and crunching right through the shells and spines. Sorry, as I was saying, Ranger Lauren, if we've got any questions from our Facebook audience, now I think would be a really good time for me to take one, as I try to protect these guys here.
So Lori from Facebook would like to know, what kinds of kelp are there?
Good question. Yes, well, kelp is a group of seaweeds, and you right now are seeing probably a good handful of different types of kelp around me, and there are dozens and dozens of different types of kelp. And they've all got different names. But just alone, I'm looking around and I'm seeing at least 4 or 5 different types of seaweeds in that kelp group. Very good question. Okay. I've got another critter that we've gone out and collected for you here. And I will ask our... This is awesome. I will ask our Ventura audience if you know the name of this ginormous animal of the kelp forest. Go ahead and shout it out, guys. You got it. It's a giant lobster, let's say. Because I'm wrangling it my best I can, but I think it's got a hold of me now. You got it. It's a lobster, and it's called the California spiny lobster, which relies on the kelp forest also for survival. The things it likes to eat are here, and it really likes the cracks and crevices in the rocky reef to tuck on into and protect itself from predators during the day. They're nocturnal, meaning they come out at night to feed. Whoops. I don't want to lose it. All right, I think I got it good this time. And they feed on things like small fish, crabs, clams. And you can see how well they are able to camouflage in to the seafloor. This one's got some very strong legs. You see how it just keeps grabbing me? This has got to be very entertaining for you all while I try to wrangle this spiny lobster here. It's a live show, so you never know what you're going to get. But lobster are also one of the top 5 animals that are caught out here at the Channel Islands by commercial fishermen. And so we don't get to see too many that are this big because they're often caught for food. But because we're diving in a marine reserve, this is one of the animals we often see in these areas that are allowed to get a lot bigger because these reserves provide a refuge for them to grow to these huge sizes. So before anything else funny happens, I'm going to have to hand this spiny lobster back to Ranger Dave. And we'll see. This might be entertaining for you all, because I don't think it wants to let go of my arm. Oh, I really enjoyed my time with you too, buddy. But eventually, you're going to have to go back to your siesta in the rocks. Had a good handle on me there. You can see that spiny lobster didn't have claws. So for those of you in Washington, D.C., you're probably going, well, wait a minute. Where are those lobsters' claws? Our lobsters here in California do not have claws. They're different than the ones you might find on the East Coast that you're more familiar with. Instead, they have little spines all over the top of their back to help protect them from predators. Okay, before we move on, let's take another question from our Facebook audience. Ranger Lauren, if you have one ready.
Well, I have a question from our live audience. Can we take one from them?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
What are those growths on some of the kelp leaves?
Okay, good. So you have seen some of the, here's one. These growths, maybe you're referring to the white part on the kelp blade, that's actually an animal called a bryozoan. And they cover the surface of the kelp and live there. That's its habitat there. A lot of fish come around and feed off these little bryozoans. But sometimes if it gets, particularly in warm water, these bryozoan populations will explode, covering all the blades you can see. And it really has an impact on the kelp forest here at the Channel Islands. We do see that during years of warmer water. Great question. So, I know we have a few more critters to show you, but before we do, we did talk about how this is a marine reserve and how it's protected, but there still are some threats to this system. Now, I'd love to start with our Ventura audience. Have you guys heard of any threats to our ocean? And if so, please share. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Global warming.
Excellent. Global warming. Yes. Fantastic. Any others?
What animals have you find?
Oh. Well, we've definitely got some more animals for you. You hang tight and we'll show you a few more good ones, okay?
We have one more suggestion.
Okay, thanks.
Pollution?
Yes, great. Pollution in the form of plastics, oil spills, okay? Somebody mentioned global warming. Yeah, climate change. As our whole globe continues to increase in temperature, our ocean temperatures are increasing as well. And our kelp forests really prefer that cool water. And so, as the water continues to warm, it's having a negative impact on some of our kelp forests. Another one you maybe have heard of is ocean acidification. As our oceans continue to absorb carbon dioxide, it's making our oceans more acidic, and that's posing some problems for some of the different inhabitants that cannot survive well in this acidic environment. So these are some of the impacts that do exist, and it's important to be aware of them. But there are a lot of things that you and I can do to help take care of our oceans, to help protect it. Any thoughts here from Anacapa, our fourth graders? You guys have any ideas on ways you and I can help protect our oceans?
How long does it take for fish?
We're coming up with a couple right now.
Okay.
Not litter on the floor.
Very good. No littering on the floor. Yeah, let's throw our trash away in the proper receptacle in those trash cans. Yes. What else?
Another one is that, hey, how come my voice feels so, whatever. Oh yeah.
First time speaking in a microphone is a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Try speaking in a microphone underwater
Recycle.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, he said recycle.
Recycle. Excellent. Yes. How about participating in some beach cleanups? Maybe help by driving your cars less and walking more, riding your bikes more, turning off lights when you leave a room. These are all simple ways, but if we all combine these simple things, we can have a much bigger impact in protecting our oceans, because everything we do on the land affects our seas. And everything we do in the sea protects the health of life on land. Remember, we're all connected, right? Okay, I got one more critter to show you. So, wow. All right, Ventura, when you see this animal, go ahead and shout out its name.
Horn shark.
Good. I heard someone say horn shark. It's a wiggly one. This is a horn shark. You can tell why it's called a horn shark. Right on the top of its body there, by its dorsal fins, are two little horns to help protect itself from predators. But this horn shark relies on the protection of the kelp forest from predators. It's very well camouflaged into the rocks you see on the seafloor. All the food it likes to eat is also here in the kelp forest. Little crabs, clams, and things just like that lobster. It tucks itself back in cracks and crevices during the day and comes out at night to feed. And there are about 17 or so different species about this big, and this individual is probably about 3.5 feet long, so not real big, but he's really beautiful. Josh, I'm going to go ahead and let it go and see if we can't film him swimming away. You want to try to capture that on film? So let's let this horn shark go. It's going to go back to its crack in the kelp forest, rocky reef, hopefully. And you guys will get a chance to... It's always hard for our cameraman to film him. Nope, he went straight to the surface. Hey, Anacapa, 4th graders, he's coming to see you. Well, in today's program, you got to take a good look at kelp, right? We got to see some of the different inhabitants of the kelp forest and how they interact in this web of life here. We also got to see a marine reserve in action, a well-balanced ecosystem with all the players present. We talked a little bit about some threats to this ecosystem and ways that you and I can help protect it. Okay, because that's so important. We're all connected to the ocean. We rely on it for recreation, for food. We also rely on it for that ever-important oxygen that we breathe every day. So join me now. Take a big, deep breath. And please do your part in protecting our ocean for all of us now and for future generations. So with that, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Channel Islands Live. Bye, everybody. Anacapa, we'll see you in just a couple minutes.